So we were together last week, but we weren't on air. And now we're separate, but we're on air?
What's your middle name?
Exactly.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. I am very excited to be here with the incredible Anthony Melchiori. Of course, I'm Glenn Hausman. Anthony, it's great to be back. I know our schedule's been a little wonky lately because we've been traveling so much and doing some sort of stuff. I guess that's the downside of the economy and the hospitality universe being great again.
You know what? I'm putting in my resignation of this podcast. I'm giving you 2 weeks notice because you use the word wonky wonk. And, there are some words I give you one time you're allowed to use. But wonky wonk, you're never allowed to use again. And I may rescind my my resignation and apologize profusely.
And now you're stuck doing it. I am sorry for using those words in that order. Here at No Vacancy, we really try to make this a family program, something that's accessible to all people. But when I speak like that, obviously I turn off the folks that just can't handle the fun language.
So what is your middle name? I know I've asked you that before.
Andrew.
And what's my middle name?
Italian.
I don't have one.
You don't have one? No. All right. So to bring up that poor joke, I knew your family was poor when you were growing up, but they couldn't.
Well, that's what I was saying. I couldn't afford a middle name.
Yeah. So, Anthony, it's been cool because we've been traveling all around the country. See, going to a lot of meetings, participating in a lot of different events. And
I will say, I was in Arizona on the hottest day in the history of Phoenix, Arizona, 119 degrees. And it felt like 90 degrees in New York. And I wouldn't run down the block or play tennis, but people were. And I went on the hotel I was in. I went on the Easy River or whatever that's called.
Lazy. Right.
So I went in the Lazy River. And as I was getting out of the pool, I didn't have my shoes next to me. So I had to throw water on the side. So when I got out, I don't put my feet.
Yep.
When I threw the water out and got out, the water was gone.
Yeah. I was too at the same resort. And we'll tell you a little bit more about why we were there later in the week. But Anthony, my way to deal with the 119 degree strategy was to close all the shades and blinds in the window, turn the air conditioning up all the way, and keep the lights off mostly, and just pray.
So basically a normal day for you.
What's that? I'm sorry?
Basically a normal day for you.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our show. I'm feeling a little bit goofy apparently, and I think we should get it together for our guests here.
You're feeling a little wonky wonk.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm gonna have to fire you. All right. So here we go. One of the things that I've been noticing, Anthony, as we've been traveling around the country, is a lot of discussion about all these great new hotels that are coming, or hotels that are seeing a big, significant investment in them to bring them back to glory, to better appeal to the different types of audiences we're starting to see. Again, I always have to say this, not because of COVID, but because people are constantly changing and adapting and morphing, and so do the products we have here. So we got with us the incredible Laura McKoy, and she is, of course, the creative director and VP of Interior Design, Omni Hotels and Resorts. And Laura, thank you for sticking with us and not fleeing after the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah, I have some funny terms, but I hadn't heard wonky wonk. So.
Yeah, well, I just like to make up stuff, as we go. So a couple of months ago, we had the incredible Chairman Peter Strebel on of Omni, and we got really into what your approach was as a company, where you were focused on a lot of resorts, convention center type properties, all of that kind of stuff. So we thought it'd be fun to have you on today to talk a little bit about how you are thinking about your approach to construction design, particularly when it comes to new developments and reinventing properties as well.
What would be interesting to a lot of people that are familiar with kind of Omni, talk a little bit about the history of Omni and how it's really different than the other brands, significantly different. You can move faster. You have it's really a family-owned business. So talk a little bit about that, and then get into the other part, because I really think that it's a shame we don't have more companies like you with a strong brand like you have, because I think when you have the other brands, they get so big and they get so complicated, and there's so many layers that they can't move fast and do the things that you guys do.
No, absolutely. It being at Omni is just a treat every day
Right.
because we own, manage, and operate all of our hotels. So all of the decisions that are made are within the corporate office with
Right.
our owner here. And then also we're engaging the hotels to get information from them and what they're hearing from the guests to implement that quickly. So for instance, like when we're creating scopes of work, we're asking the sales team and meeting with the operations team on what will work better. So not only are we designing great, beautiful properties, but we're also doing things that the guests want to, will help them have a better experience.
Yeah, I like that. So when you're thinking about having a better experience, where are we centering in on now when it comes to creating that experience? And it's important that we understand that you're hitting two different audiences. The audience is the business professional who wants to be productive at a meeting, and folks that also want to kick back and relax.
No, I think that's Omni's like perfectly centered between group and leisure.
Yep.
So when we're doing all of the design, we're trying to figure out how it's going to work great for a group meeting planner, meeting guest, but also be something that you can stay through the weekend or have a staycation and the leisure aspect. So some of the things that we've implemented recently is how you work in the room and trying to get away from a traditional desk. And so you don't really want to sit up against a wall and look at the wall.
Right.
You want to feel like you're experiencing the room. And so we're moving towards activity tables and sofas and just a non-traditional working atmosphere.
An activity table is something that you could move around the room, so you could kind of control where you go. Is that what you mean?
Well, it's not on wheels, but you could absolutely move it around the room. It would be somewhere where you could see the TV or have room service, or have two people sit across from each other and enjoy a meal. It's not just like a traditional desk.
Yeah, I thank you for that, because I've seen more hamstrings and backs of moving furniture, heavy desk. I am very, as Glenn knows, I walk into my room within 30 minutes. The room is exactly the way I want it. I take all my clothes out, I hang everything up, I steam everything, and then I move all the furniture. Even if I know I'm not going to watch TV that day, but if I'm going to be there a couple of days, I move everything exactly the way I want it. And if I just have a chair that moves easily or a desk that moves easily, I don't have to worry about that, because when I'm ready for it, I'll just move it. And so it's really, really critical, especially today, where every single person works from their lap. Everybody works from their little laptop, except me, because I only work from my phone.
I don't know how you do that. It's the
Yeah.
most incredible thing.
You have a great assistant that you text and go, "Can you write that for me?" And you have a great podcast partner. You go, "Hey, can you send that email?"
Yeah, right.
I do everything I do everything with a thumb.
Yeah.
And so it's critical. It's really, really critical. And the nuance of design is the difference between, oh, that felt good, or that felt a little weird. The nuance is something you won't even know. You as a designer build that in, and we don't even, I know it because I'm OCD, but most people wouldn't even know why that felt better.
Yeah.
No, it is how you experience the space and how you feel in the space. Is sometimes you don't know why you feel that way, but that's what great interior design does. It makes you feel comfortable in the space that you're in and how you can work, and also just kind of experience the space as through your visit. I think is you don't want it to actually act the same way every day, especially if you're going from a business trip into a leisure experience.
And how much cleaning the room and flipping the room goes into your design? Meaning labor, because we have to make sure these things are easy to clean. One, we don't have a lot of labor, and two, it's not fair to the young lady or young man cleaning the room if it's a difficult room to clean.
No, this is like perfect conversation, because I was at a model room last week in Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah.
And the designer had done a curved headboard, and we had emailed operations to ask what was the dimension of the vacuum cleaner, because it was 12 inches on the front, and we wanted to make sure that you could vacuum in that space and they weren't having to like take off an attachment and then bend over,
Right.
and like it would be easier for them to clean the room. And I don't know that the guest was going to miss it if we made that curve just slightly larger.
Yeah, and those are the things that people don't think about, because the difference between somebody flipping a room in 34 minutes as opposed to 28 minutes is a big deal.
Yes. And I think that's where Omni, like, since all the decision makers are in the room with operations and sales, when we're reviewing these model rooms, we can attack them from all the
Ooh.
aspects.
Yeah,
I think
go
that's
on.
different than what we're seeing from other brands. Just talking with other purchasing agents and other designers, like
Right.
we know how things are working in the space 5, 10, 15 years in advance, and not repeating the same mistake multiple times.
When you have one owner and you have a decision team, a team of decision makers who've been working together for years, because I know a lot of Omni
Yep.
C-suite, you guys have all been there for a long time. There's a trust, whereas there's a lot of the bigger brands. There may be a new VP of design, a new VP of operations, a new VP of food, and they get in the room and everybody's watching their P's and Q's because they don't want to get in trouble or piss somebody off. When you've worked with a family, you're like, well, I know what's going to trigger David or somebody else, so I won't say that, but I can have a side conversation, because at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that this doesn't happen because it'll be a failure. And those are, to me, the difference between working fluidly and working where in silos.
No, and I mean, honestly, at Omni, we all just say it. We feel like if you can't say it in the room, then you probably shouldn't like have a sidebar afterwards, because we want to solve it. We like want to know what everybody's thinking, so it'll be the best product that we can produce. Like, it's not, if it doesn't work for operations, then it ultimately doesn't work for design.
Right. And too many hotel companies kind of miss out on that element. And I see the same kind of mistakes appear time and time again throughout different properties. And with your institutional knowledge, it's fun to see something like that not happen. So, but I want to talk a little bit about how you incorporate those things into really understanding what your overall design narrative is going to be for a specific property. How do you make sure that you have all the little details that the guests may not notice, but improves their stay, while also being able to create that sense of place and story?
Well, I think when we start a project, when we onboard the consultants, we do an immersion trip. And so we are going to the city where we're doing a new build, or if we're doing a major renovation, and we're staying sometimes a week, and we're trying to not only visit the comp set, but we're also visiting things that are very pivotal in the city. And like, maybe we were going to museums, or maybe we're going to colleges, and what kind of shapes that city, and trying to tell the story in a unique way. Because I think everyone is trying to tell the local color, local story, but how can we do it better, or how can we do it more authentic? I think
Right.
is what he's trying to do, is like that we actually have touch points that the sales team and the operations team can tell. I think that's another thing that's really unique to Omni, is that when we create our story, when we do the immersion trip, and we're staying true to that throughout the design process, that we're telling that story to the team. They have access to the designers, and it lives and it continues on, and everybody's like singing off the same sheet of music.
When you go into other brands, and we won't name any, but what's the one thing that makes you kind of bang your head against the wall and go, why would they do that? Is there one consistent thing that you see that we're still doing, or that it seems like people are now doing, that just doesn't make sense to you?
I don't know if there's necessarily one thing. I'm always
There's a
intrigued.
thousand things.
Yeah, there's a thousand things. I'm just intrigued by where people cut on cost, and like the long-term decision-making process of like, was it the designers leading the developer
Right.
in that direction because they wanted to spend the money somewhere else. But like, if you don't buy a quality carpet in the corridors, and then that developer has to, or the owner has to change it out in 4 years, then you really didn't save anything by buying a less expensive carpet. Like some of those things, I'm just intrigued how they got to the decision point.
You know what gets me? I was just in a hotel probably a couple months ago. I think Glenn was in the same hotel. And Glenn told me, they just renovated. And I really thought they renovated 20 years ago. Not because things were worn out, but just because it's like, this is a hotel that's designed 20 years ago. But the thing that stands out to me is I've been in a lot of nice hotels too, where they cheap out on the artwork and frames. And I'm just like, whoa, you just a gorgeous room or a really nice room. That's a piece of crap art. Or you go into the bathroom and it's one color with no art, no anything, no trim. And I'm just like, I'm not understanding why you're this close. Have you noticed that?
I have. I think the other thing I'm noticing is people are doing a lot of neutral colors and they're kind of scared to tell a unique story with their design, which is the opposite of what Omni's trying to do. I think they're just wanting to be safe. And I think the artwork's a perfect example of how you can, if you do the research, you can work with artists. It doesn't have to be expensive, and really create a sense of place for the guest.
Yeah, there's a lot of starving artists out there that would die to do work for a hotel.
When we did Omni Dallas Convention Center, had 1,000 rooms. We had 10 pieces of art in each room, and everyone was an original.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I love
that little touch changes everything.
But I also love when hoteliers have programs with local artists, and I think that really helps accentuate and tells that story that you're trying to do when you have authentic local creations.
Well, what we're doing right now is all of the local artists, we're putting a plaque next to the art with their information, with their website. So
cool.
You can, if you like that piece of art, you can go onto their website. You can buy art from them, which is like promoting them within the city. And the other thing we're doing is we're creating art books that you can go to the front desk and get an art book, and then it will walk you through all the art in the hotel and tell you why we made the selections, which pieces are local. And I just think it's something different that I'm not seeing at other brands.
Right. And because it's not going to make a difference on top line revenue, people are like, well, what is that going to do? It's an experience, and it gives you something to do. Like my wife and I were in Vermont for a wedding this week, and we went looking for things to do. And there was, it's a small town in Vermont, and we found some really cool things. We went to an alpaca farm, and we just went on to the alpaca farm. And this beautiful, it was like a 5-star alpaca farm. It was unbelievable. These 2 people retired, and they just built it beautifully. And they were so service oriented. When we didn't have an appointment, we just showed up. And I bought $100 worth of stuff in their gift shop just because I felt guilty of all the time they took. And it's just those simple things. And then they were selling socks or whatever it was. So if you're selling a piece of art, whether you're making money from it or not, like I'm going to support you simply because you made the effort.
No, and we're not selling the art. We're just directing them to the artist.
Right. You made the effort. And a lot of hotels, especially in the bigger brands, it's like it doesn't work in that funnel of, better than anybody. Working in those big brands, you go in and it's like, okay, we hit and run. You have to do this.
Right.
Piece of art, 20 beds, 20 blah, 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 go. And it's just, there's no heart.
I think what we're really talking about here, Anthony and Laura, is that one of the things that I have been frequently preaching is hoteliers do such a great job. And it's like that 2% that's really different, right? Everyone gets that 98% or so just right. We're talking about that stuff on the margins, the stuff that's maybe not detectable with a single element. But if you start to compromise and you don't do the artwork the right way and you lower a finish here and there, and then you make sure that you cheap out on that carpet so you have to replace it in 4 years, all of those things start to add up that I think sends an unconscious signal to guests in the property that maybe this isn't what I was expecting. They may not be able to verbalize it, but I think it's one of those things that say it's just an okay trip versus a wow type of trip that makes you want to come back again and again. Laura, am I onto something, or am I just getting a little too wonky wonk there?
No, I totally. I don't know. Like, I remember when I first started staying in hotels, like you wanted to bring something back to your own home.
Yeah.
And we want to keep, it's not, I don't know how to say this exactly, but like, how are you inspired personally by your stay?
Right.
And it's not just a safe property. Like, I was working on, I think it resonated with me recently as well. I was working on an article of how can you take ideas from our hotel designs and bring them into your own home. And I think with retail becoming so accessible now, you can purchase those things and create unique spaces that you're inspired by from your stays. And artwork's a perfect example, but also through furniture and accessories and just the way, like the communal aspect that we're really going for at Omni, of we want to create memorable experiences that you had either with your family or your coworkers, and how those seating groups come together for you to be able to experience those, like where you're putting your cocktail and that you feel comfortable sitting on the seat and that you can be casual and you can have a great time.
Yeah, and another thing is when you move the furniture, whatever, you usually don't have a plug. So there needs to be more accessibility to when if I move that cocktail table, I should be able to have a plug near it or on it or whatever. How do you think about uniforms when you're thinking about design? So if you're designing a hotel, do you get involved or have any input into the uniforms backing up that design?
And with the name creative director, I suppose you are influential in that category too.
Yes. We go through a process where we create a deck of what each space is going to look like and then provide that to the uniform company. And then they actually come in and do a fashion show for us.
Fun.
That we critique the uniforms for each space and make sure that they are either, sometimes we want them to just be quiet and go away and complement the design. And sometimes they need to be more part of the entire story and be part of the design story of what the staff is wearing. So yes, very involved.
Yeah, and that's critical because that's art and uniforms where people get it wrong. Those two things are the things that I'm looking at the most. If I'm in a room, I'm staring at that art. If I'm having a cocktail, that waitress or bartender, they're I'm looking at them constantly. That's moving art, and to me, those are the two things that can make the influence you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you folks right now are putting $150 million into the Omni Homestead Resort and the Omni Tempe Resort and the Omni PGA Frisco Resort. Woo! The Omni Resort, the Omni Homestead Resort, $150 million. I think we're looking at that one here right now. That's a Frisco one. Is that the Frisco one? Yeah, that's the one.
Frisco. Yes,
Omni PGA Frisco. Yeah.
This is a 660-acre resort that we just opened on May 2nd.
$520 million. Woo!
$520 million. Yeah, it's hard to spend that much money.
Congratulations on being able to do that. So when
it's hard if you do it in Times Square, that'll take you about a minute.
I know. So when you're putting that kind of money into it, obviously you need to think this. You need to think this through. So I know you worked with like Jeffrey Beers, for example, on this. So what was your kind of your point of view and what you were trying to achieve with this PGA themed property?
So this land was originally a working ranch, a working cattle ranch that a gentleman named Bert Fields had put this land together over time. And we acquired the land from the estate. And we sat down and we met with the ranch hands that worked on the property to like understand Bert had passed away and kind of like who he was as a person. And I think it just really resonated with us that we wanted it to be a Texas modern ranch home is how we wanted the hotel to feel. So it's 6 stories. It kind of turns on the site. We wanted everything to be facing the Gulf. We were calling that our beach the entire time. And I think the our partnership with the PGA of America on this
Yeah.
hotel, and how there were all these relationships between like in golf, you keep your own score, and how you have to be an honest person, and then the honest story with Burt Fields. And we were creating spaces that are, there's the lobby bar right now. All of that opens up onto the golf course. Very authentic Texas materials with limestone and metals. But again, very neutral, because we want all of the green on the golf course to be the
Look
show.
at that. Oh my goodness.
This is Trick Rider. This is probably one of my favorite projects that I've worked on since I've been with Omni.
Yes, and remember, we're going to put this on audio, so please just use a lot of good words to describe this awesome image.
So this is our specialty restaurant called Trick Rider, and we became really inspired by this woman named Sidna Yoakley Woodard, who was the founder of the American Quarter Horse Association. So the entire space is designed around women trick riders. And we had a crystal horse commissioned out of the Czech Republic that hangs over the bar. So it's this bar that's in a horseshoe shape, and it has a star liquor display in the center. And then above it is this crystal horse that is hanging from, we had a custom image of the sky of Texas. We shipped it over to the Czech. They pinpointed
that sky image looks amazing. It's like going from sunset into evening.
Well, and I don't know I think you've got the website pulled up, but like the other artwork in the space is spurs and pistols and belts, and it's really a fantastic space. We're calling her Cinnamon.
But again, you walk into that space and it's beautiful and it feels like a wealthy person's ranch, but that artwork is memorable, and we're going to talk about that artwork for the first 10 minutes before we order our drink, of how beautiful it is, and look at that color, that's my favorite color, and look at how the ceiling is. But it's not, when you walk in, you're not overwhelmed by it. You're just like, it's so neutral and so it feels really good, but then you have this beautiful artwork that's kind of overwhelming, but it kind of neutralizes the space, or the space neutralizes it. It's absolutely gorgeous and well done. Thank you. It's great. What was the one thing that you learned about the owner? Because I love what you just said about really understanding what you're getting into in the history. Because to me, as Glenn knows, I take over a hotel and me and the walls like talk to each other, and we hug and we kiss. Like, I need to know that building. I don't care about what happened yesterday in that building. I want to know why it was built before I can really take it over. So what was the one thing you learned about the gentleman that owned it previously that was delightful or surprising, or that you really incorporated into the whole space?
Well, as the owner of the land, I think that he was from what we understood, he was very understated, and he wasn't, was very quiet, and I think reserved, and just was good at his business. And we kind of related that to Omni being a smaller brand, and we're good at our business, and we're small but mighty. And I think the way that he acquired his land was a little bit quiet, and was putting all of these pieces together, and then people came to the realization of how much land he owned in North Texas, because while Omni purchased 660 acres, he has other parcels that he put together. So I think just that, I don't know, just he was a small farmer, a small rancher, but just seemed to do a lot of things on his own. When we met with the ranch hands, just they couldn't say enough nice things about him and how kind he was and hospitable. And it just seemed like the perfect fit for an Omni resort to live on his land.
I had that experience when I went to the alpaca farm, and every building on the farm was beautiful. And I was like, when'd you build that? And why'd you build that? And why'd you mill? And it was slow. I've learned this later in my life. Slow is fast. And I love people like that, because they're methodical, they're slow, but they're fast. Because like little by little, he owns Texas and nobody knew. but he didn't do it in a grandiose way or look at me, and he knows his business, and I love that. I'm glad I asked that question.
All
One
right.
of the
So,
other things that, just one other story about
Yeah.
him, his homestead was up on the spot that we put the halfway house on the golf courses.
mhm.
And there was a multitude of live oak trees that we kept, but we moved one of them down to be at the entrance of the hotel. So when we started construction on the golf courses, we moved it to a place that was protected kind of off the road. And then we positioned it at the porte cochere at the entry. And it's just really special that we know that that's one of the trees that his home like was surrounded by his home.
Wow.
That's cool. So I'm just scrolling through some of these images.
Look at that lobby. That lobby.
Yeah.
Is
Let me
so-
go back to that and we can talk about that. There, go
that
for it.
lobby again looks like an understated wealthy rancher. You know,
That was the goal.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, I
But
think
with
that
us having access to everything that that artwork that's behind the front desk.
yeah.
So since we were overseeing the golf course design, we were able to get with the golf course designer, and he gave us the
Was a
golf
topographical map?
plans. It's the topographical
Mhm.
map of the 18th green that we recreated in plaster and then put behind the front desk.
So let me ask you a question that a lot of people wouldn't know this, but these are the stuff when I talk to these are the things that when I talk to designers fascinate me. No, go back to that picture because I need
Going
that
back.
Thank you very much. That little divider, that's in that seating area. Tell me the thought process and why is that there? Is that a functional thing or is that more of trying to just kind of make the space smaller in a larger space?
I think it separates spaces. Yeah.
So to the left of this image is the front door.
Right.
And the front of the hotel has the steel and glass window system.
Mhm.
And so what we were trying to do is create a hallway so that you can start to traverse through the hotel, but then also the hotel is large, so we're trying to create intimate spaces, and this window system starts to create a little bit of a barrier so that you can stand in line to check in as people are walking in, that you are a little bit of a private experience to get your hotel room.
But it's so perfect because it's not. If it was any longer, you would cut the space off and it wouldn't feel as open. If it was any
Mhm.
shorter, it wouldn't work. And those are the little things to me that make a space like that work. That no one, unless you're a very well experienced designer,
Right.
gets. And then I know you want to ask a question, but I have one more.
No, I feel like I'm just trying to manage all the pictures and stuff like that. So I'm using all my brain power for that. So feel free to keep talking.
So, how much fun? Like you've been doing this a long time, right? So, how much fun is when you're able to work on a project like this? I mean, how excited and how much fun is that, just as a profession, that you get to do this?
Now I have to pinch myself every day of the opportunities that I've
Mhm.
been given. Like we've almost doubled in size since I've been with Omni, and
Wow.
I think PGA was my 12th new build.
Mhm.
And since we are smaller, we are really involved. Every single one of these assets is so important to us as a brand that they're perfect and thought through. And we're not going fast. We're not trying to just see how many hotels we can build. We're trying to build fabulous, great hotels, amazing experiences.
Yeah.
But so when did you realize you wanted to be a designer?
So my mom had a designer that helped us with our house, and I was super intrigued by her. But my parents own a wholesale barbecue business, and my dad wanted me to major in business and come home
Barbecue?
and work barbecue. Yes, they wanted to work for the family business, and I was determined I was going to major in interior design, but I was too scared to tell him. So I didn't declare my major my freshman year, and my mom told me that I had to tell him that summer. So, I mean, I think I've always kind of known probably, but just hotels, I did an internship with hotels, and it gets in your blood and it's hard to get out. So I started doing hotel design out of college, worked for a tiny firm. There was a list of approved Marriott designers. I think there were 6 on it. We were one of them. And we did a ton of Marriott work, and then I moved to a larger interior architecture firm and then moved to the owner side. So it's been an amazing career.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So I want to talk about another property real quick, if you don't mind. I'd rather talk about barbecue and more of your career and all that kind of stuff. We are getting low on time, and I want to make sure that we get to cover the homestead, which is going through an incredible $150 million renovation right now. Absolutely, that's absolutely incredible. So tell us a little bit about the property to orient people and what we're looking at here on the outside.
So this is America's first resort. So it was originally built. It's kind of been gathered over time, 1766. What you're looking at right now is the warm spring pools. So these pools have medicinal values. There's a men's and a women's pool. And there is clothing optional hours.
Bring that. Ooh, yeah. I'll make sure everyone will avoid seeing me during those hours.
We did a restoration of those pools with the state of Virginia. And the thing that was really neat is that we saved every single piece of wood that was reusable.
Wow.
And put it back in the exact same spot. So this is, it has a skylight in the center, and each one of those doors is a changing room so that you can go in and put your bathing suit on and then come and enjoy the pool. So it's a warm spring that's fed through a local creek that comes into the space.
There's still hours that are clothing optional.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, and that makes sense because if you look historically at a lot of bathhouses and stuff, that's kind of the way it is because you had men's and women's separate, so it was no big deal back then. Ooh, hold on one second. I'm going to bring up this picture of this event pavilion. Look at this. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Ooh.
This is under construction right now. It's it'll look back at the resort, and we'll open it in October. So one of the things that we heard from the hotel that was missing was an event space that was a little bit separated, had the great views of the mountains, and you could have a wedding or an event there and feel like you were a different place on campus. So there's the event lawn that's in front, and then the event space inside. Then we have a bride ready room and restrooms. And then there's a huge patio on the side that has fire pits that have all of the mountain views.
Right. Yeah, I've been. Yeah, go on, Anthony. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. I just came from a Vermont wedding, and they didn't have the same type of facility. They had a beautiful little facility, and it was just perfect. Like something like that, like having it outdoors, and you can, if it rains, you can go indoors, and it's just, and you see the mountains. I mean, it's just different than having it in a catering hall.
And here looks like a picture of the main property.
Yes, this is the main hall. And so the registration desk is down on the left. And really, this hotel, when we were working with the design firm, is more about restoration and how do we care for this property. Omni bought it in 2013 and started trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And we're not trying to change it. We're just trying to honor it and give it a new life. So the area rug that you see, I think that we probably did 30 samples of it.
Right.
We were trying to keep each one of those flowers perfect. There's birds and butterflies that are all indigenous to Virginia, and just keep it really authentic, but traditional and beautiful.
As I'm looking at this space, right? You just said, I'm looking at them like it's very, like you said, the colors, it's very simple colors. And I'm looking at that carpet, and I'm like, if they get that carpet wrong, the entire space is broken. And so I'm literally, before you even said it, I'm just looking, so, okay, why do I love this space so much? Because it's pretty simple. And then as I'm going, it's actually not simple. But being perfect is not simple. But it has to be simple.
It's so ornate. I mean, the only thing we did in here is paint. We kept all the chandeliers like they were historic. We're not trying to recreate something that didn't exist. So even some of the furniture we reupholstered, we reused the antiques and just had them refinished, just again, restoring, not not redesigning.
Even those little lamps you have, they're beautiful. And, again, that's kind of where I have a problem with when you see a big brand, taking over these very, boutique hotels. And the boutique hotel doesn't have to be a 50-room hotel. It could be a 4, 5, 6, 800-room hotel.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a special room or special hotel. And they just take the chandelier and they put in a plastic chandelier, or the lighting around the tables that have to be, more inexpensive because it doesn't fit the budget, but it destroys the entire look of the property. And that's what you're talking about before with the short-sightedness of like that hotel. When you're looking at that space, again, as a person who's been doing this for 35 years, like I could call BS quick on a space like that. And it looks so just perfect and just something I want to go and hang out with. And I want to get out of my room and go, and go read a book in the lobby.
Well, I think that the other thing that, when we were working on the design is when we bought the hotel, every single meeting room had different carpet. And your initial reaction is just like doing a new hotel. And you're like, oh, well, we'll run this carpet throughout everywhere. And then it'll have a different pattern in the pre-function. But we actually worked with the carpet manufacturer to have completely different color palettes for different carpets so that they're not consistent and you have different experiences as you work through the building.
Yeah. So this is the Omni ASU?
Yes.
That
it's
right?
in Tempe. It's the only hotel that's actually on the campus.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So that probably meant that you had to do things a little bit differently, right? Oh, wait, I think I grabbed the wrong one. Sorry, I was trying to be cool there. Give me 1 second. Start talking about that.
Try to be cool. You don't have to try to be cool. You were born cool.
All right, here's the bathroom. Woo! All right. I got to figure it out.
When we did the immersion trip for the hotel, it was probably close to as hot as you all were there last week.
Right.
And they kept talking about the shade network that's created throughout the campus and how you move and circulate to class. And that really resonated with us of like how when it rains there, it's so important. And we were very inspired by that in the bathrooms. So this blue color and the wall covering behind the vanity and the blue apron on the vanity. So that was definitely inspired from that trip of us all sweating and having wet hair. But the guest rooms are the story that we really liked that we went with was, if you were a professor at ASU and when you moved to ASU to teach there, how you had collected your furniture over time, because most people don't go and buy everything at once. So we wanted it to feel like you picked up your desk and when you were at one portion of your career, and then the headboards and the nightstands were all collected over time. And how most people live, they don't like go in and renovate entire spaces all at once.
It's interesting. If you ever go into a military person's home who's been retired or been in the military for a long time, that's exactly it. You walk through and you're like, wow, this is fascinating. You were in Africa? You were in Germany? Where'd you get that? So that's wonderful.
Oh, so now we're looking at a guest room, and I got to tell you, I love the clean lines and the minimalism of this space. It feels sophisticated and collegiate, but they're not hitting you over the head with it. And maybe that's because I'm seeing the woods and the leathers and stuff.
But it's still very substantial, right? It's still
agreed. It feels full of design, but doesn't feel like stuff was put in there for the sake of having it in there.
No, but we had some fun with it as well. There's a refrigerator that we had custom colored to the ASU maroon. And then there are stickers on the front of the fridge that are ASU and mugs. So even though the design is really sophisticated, we're nodding back to the university with ways that you would incorporate the university in your home. You'd buy a mug when you're there, and then you drink out of it when you got back. And they're all hanging from little cup holders in the armoire.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is that go back to that, Glenn?
Yeah.
Is that in the illustration or is that a photo?
That's a photo.
Okay, so I love these teaching moments. For every single person that does a photo, you spend all
Yeah.
this millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you worry and worry and worry about it being perfect. And then you take a crappy photo. Look at this photo, Glenn. Okay.
Yeah, it's a magnificent image.
Look at the pillows, okay?
Right.
Look at the way
I'm trying to make it as big as possible, but I think that's about as big as I could get.
as a person who spends hours and hours and hours with a bed expert and a photographer to make the beds perfect, like these images are going to last for a long time on the website. Like, just look at the pillows. You know how long it takes to get those pillows perfect?
And all the details, the folds on the bed. I mean, even the angle of the desk chair is done to highlight the fabric on the back of the chair as well, in my opinion. I like having one.
And then look at the little things on the desk. They're not
the one book,
flowery things, and like everything. I just did a photo shoot last year, and I flew down to do it with my client. And I sweated for 12 hours making sure that people understand the importance of that photo. So are you involved in that day? So tell me about that.
Well, not in the actual day, just because I don't have enough hours in my day. But what we do is the photographer will go and do a test shot, and then we'll work through the angles of how we want the room to be portrayed. There's the fridge and the stickers. And then we actually pull all of the imagery for the accessories. So the little pieces that you saw sitting on the desk, we're ordering those. We're shipping them to the photographer. We're working with the florist to how we want the room to feel, because you're exactly right. I mean, you could end up with like a rose bouquet if you're not paying attention of somebody thinks that that's appropriate for the space.
Yeah. And it's critical, because that picture is going to, there's a photo shoot I did probably now it's 20 years ago in Times Square. And those pictures are still on the website.
Wow.
Because they're still on the website, and they still look fresh, and they still look perfect, and they're still beautiful. But we spent literally with 6 shots or 8 shots, 24 hours with the photographer and a stylist. And I was obsessed with I remember running the wrong color bottle of wine, the wrong label, the wrong this, the wrong that, the wrong flower. It's too big, it's too small. But once it's in, it lasts forever.
Yeah. Laura, this hotel is gorgeous.
Thank you.
You did an amazing job.
Yeah, we opened this one 5 days before we opened PGA. So it was
oh my goodness.
We were flying, a lot of flying back and forth over time. So I would be in Tempe during the week and then on PGA on the weekends. So
unbelievable.
But we love, the Omni design team loves to accessorize. It's like one of our favorite things. We like to shop local, put all the stuff in our car. We create our own flower arrangements.
Yep.
So we have a great time.
It shows. I can look at these pictures literally 24 hours straight just to see everything that you thought of, because that my little brain gets crazy and obsessed with those little details. So I know we got to go. Actually, we really like you, because we usually do half hour now.
I know. Hold on. I feel like I feel bad, because there's one more thing I want to show off if possible, but we have to be really, really quick about it. All right. So, all right, hold on. Boop. Omni Tucson.
Then I have one more question.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I just think this is a great looking space as well.
The bones of this hotel are spectacular. This is one of the first hotels the Rollings purchased. And this is the second time I've renovated this room.
Right.
Since I've been with Omni. That's like what's happening right now is I've been here over 16 years, and we're starting to renovate properties we renovated. And that's when you really know what you've done right and wrong. But these rooms are huge. That's a standard guest room.
Let me go back to it. Sorry. I'm just so everyone knows, I don't know what any of the pictures are on this one. So I'm just guessing what's next. Yeah.
So this is the standard guest room. So all the standard rooms have a sofa, 2 chairs. They moved one out for the photo shoot, and then a 4 fixture bath and a soaking tub, standard room. So that's it's pretty awesome. And then we have the golf courses. So everything's looking out onto the golf and the mountains, which is the image that's behind you. So those are your views from your room.
Yeah, right. That's what, right there. Yeah.
You just said something that, again, is another critical point. It's okay to move a chair out. And every time people said, but then people come in, they're like, well, there's another chair in my room. No one will ever say there's another chair in my room.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
like,
if you, vice versa, right?
yeah. So this is my question, because a lot of young kids follow us, a lot of hospitality students. I'm a person in college, and I want to be in the hotel business, but I want to go into design. And I just saw this podcast, and I don't have a lot of experience. What do I do? How do I contact you? What do I do? Where do I go get experience? Should I contact you, or should I go do something else? Like, I want to be in this business, but it's so overwhelming, and you're so important, and you're have such great career. You're never going to give me an opportunity. What do you say?
I would say not true, because we have an intern right now that reached out directly.
Yep.
She's from the University of Oregon, and she is sitting with us right now for 6 weeks. So
Awesome.
we're still a small company, so there's definitely the opportunity. And I would say do as many internships as you possibly can, learn different aspects, do one in a design firm, try to do one at a brand.
Mhm.
So
that makes sense. And let me tell everyone, you need to fly to Tucson just for this.
And how-
This is
I'm sure Chef Harker probably was there for the food photo shoot.
Tell you, so the reason why I brought it up is not because of Chef Harker, but the photo itself is one of the most gorgeous food photos I've ever seen. Whoever this food photographer is,
it's simple.
It's phenomenal. Just these pictures are phenomenal. There's a Sonoran hot dog I have to bring up here as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
and you know, I want to know real quick, how did she reach out to you? I want to know how she got your attention.
She got my phone number and texted me.
How'd she get your phone number? Because that's next level.
A friend of her parents knew me, and she gave her my cell phone number, and she texted me, and she wasn't afraid. And like, you know, I kind of run around a lot. And there was one day I was working on a Sunday here in the office, and I texted her back and I said, I know we've been having a hard time connecting, but can you talk today? And she said, absolutely. And I was like, I haven't showered. I'm not going to turn on my camera. I was like, you don't either. Let's just connect and see if this might work. So just like meet people where they are and kind of be casual.
And you know, I had just mentoring a kid recently, and I said, when are you doing the interview? He said, well, I'm working tonight and I'm working tomorrow. So I said, I'll call them back Wednesday. I said, I use profanity. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? I was like, you text them back and say, I am available anytime. You're working nights, so they're not going to want to work at 10 o'clock at night. And that's exactly right. She wasn't afraid. And the reason I asked you that question is because too many people are afraid of you because you have a big job. You're an important person. And I don't mean you. I mean people like us, people who've been in this career field for a long time. Like, we're scary people, and we're not. We need to give the gift of our time.
But I think that everybody gave us an opportunity, and to be able to give people those same opportunities is really important.
Yeah. I talk in my book, the first person to give me a GM job, he said, sink or swim, God bless you. And he went after me, man. It was hard, but he gave me the opportunity, and he's like, you think you're up for it? Come on, big boy, let's go. And it was hard, but he gave me the opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Laura, we got to go. Thank you so much for being here. I will give you an opportunity. Any final thoughts that you might have that you'd like to share with us that we might have missed?
I would just say, you know, if you haven't checked out an Omni recently, definitely do it. We've got tremendous projects. Go to Boston. Oklahoma City is fabulous, and Louisville. There's great Omnis everywhere. So
awesome. I love it. Laura, I apologize. Next time I'll actually talk on our podcast over here for you. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
No, you didn't talk to, no, this is not a you issue. This was me trying to, you know, since we don't have anyone behind the scenes to try to make everything work. And I was kind of focused on all of that kind of stuff.
Laura, stay in the green room. I want to ask you a question.
Go for it. Ask me the question.
I'm sorry, Glenn, that if I spoke too much.
You did not speak too much. Like I said, it's because I was working on important things like closing the show, the picture of a hot dog that looks like this. We'll be back tomorrow with another live show. Tune into our video podcast to see what this amazing hot dog looks like and the quality photograph that shows off how cool the hot dog looks with all the stuff around it that accentuates but doesn't take away from the food image. I think I got a lot of food stuff that I'm into. All right, everybody. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on. And Anthony,
be kind to yourself.
All right, see you guys later. I can't find the graphic, so I'll